Between problem solving and sense making, and between expert and diffuse design, we obtain a map of the design modes. The maps symbolize various ways of putting designing capacity into action. If in principle everybody is capable of designing, and everything can be designed, the map will help us discuss what all these people are doing, in what capacity and role they are doing it, and with what motives. More particularly, it indicates who the design experts are and what they do. Grassroots organization, diffuse design and problem solving. This is the design mode used by groups of people who design initiatives that aim to deal with local problems such as lack of green space in a neighborhood, difficulty of access to organic food, alternative mobility. Often, though not necessarily, their activities were initially driven by strong ideological or political motives. In recent years this quadrant has witnessed quantitative and qualitative transformations. In quantitative terms there has been an increase in the number of people involved, with a corresponding change in the nature of the participation. From small ideological groups to networks that include wider strata of the population. A series of different but converging forces have driven this transformation. The growing awareness and urgency of new problems in everyday life, and the availability of examples of feasible solutions that have, in the meantime, been able to prove their effectiveness and make themselves known. At the same time, the possibilities offered by the Internet and by digital media have made solutions feasible that are more effective, open, and flexible, which makes them accessible to more and wider sectors of society. The result is that these grassroots organizations are becoming more open and flexible, consisting of differently motivated people. They are evolving into collaborative organizations. Larger groups of people are thus being asked to cultivate their design capacity, and becoming more competent in doing it. That is, they are adopting a design mode that can be defined as diffuse and competent design. Cultural activists, diffuse design and sense making. This is the design mode of people who are interested in cultural activities, in both professional and non-professional terms, who set up venues to promote their areas of interest and to create occasions for exhibiting, presenting and exchanging experiences, and debating. These venues may range from cine forums to street art, from reading groups to rock bands, from local radios to the self-managed social centers. Often, though not necessarily, the participants are young people who operate in an urban environment, for whom the city is a stimulus to creativity and a theater for their performances. Nowadays, a considerable part of contemporary society, at least of the part that is urban and modernized, consists of cultural activists, in the current sense of the term. People who, in different ways, play an active role in the cultural systems they are part of. If they can do so, it is because they make best use of their design capacity. In fact, they must design the specific contents they want to present and, very often, they have to imagine and enhance a strategy to make them visible. Design and communication agency, expert design and sense making. This is the design mode of experts who use their specific knowledge and tools to conceive and develop original products, services, and communicative artifacts. This design modality includes most of the traditional design and communication agencies, many of which carry out their work focusing attention on consolidated products and services, from furnishings to hotels, from fashion to shops. In some cases, there is an exasperated search for visibility. In other cases, this modality brings products and services in line with current expectations in terms of quality, prices, and environmental sensitivity, but not necessarily in line with what is needed to take some real steps towards sustainability. Against this traditional background, we can recognize some emerging modes. Expert designers working as placemakers for local communities, cities, and regions, design activists aiming at creating change in cultural attitudes and behaviors, design production micro-enterprises operating in networks as open, distributed systems. The common denominator is that all of them are progressively shifting from dealing with traditional products and communication artifacts toward design processes in which what have to be designed are hybrid, dynamic artifacts where products, services, and communication are systemized and presented as a whole. Design and technology agency, expert design and problem solving. This is the design mode of experts with a highly technical background, aiming at solving complex problems by bridging technical and social issues. This design mode is normally performed by design agencies based on interdisciplinary teams. It addresses a variety of clients ranging from businesses to public bodies and citizen associations. Over the past decade, its field of application has widened to include increasingly complex social and environmental problems, collaborating with a variety of interlocutors. In the same period, it has been strongly influenced on one side by the user-centered design approach and methodology and by co-designing on the other. Recently, there have also been experiences in the open design and distributed production field to verify the potential of this new approach. In this framework, the specific role of design experts is to trigger and support large design processes by building the necessary coalitions among different partners, to analyze existing resources, and to enable the active participation of people who are immediately concerned. Emerging design cultures. On the basis of this map, we can look at current trends in view of the interweaving social, technical, and cultural innovation we discussed in the previous chapter. In particular, we can recognize a variety of emerging design cultures characterized by their innovative practices, meaning design cultures that have emerged thanks to a positive loop between new ideas on problem-solving and on sense-making. In general terms, we can observe that the traditional polarization between problem-solving and sense-making often tends to blur. When the innovations are radical, new practical solutions almost inevitably imply new meanings, and vice versa. Design as placemaker. Various design experts, from both the problem-solving and the sense-making sides, are converging in a central area of the map to develop projects at local or regional scale. They are aiming at regenerating the local by creating a new ecology of places. An ecosystem in which local culture and production are able to live and regenerate in a balanced relationship between local and global. In this area of the map, design experts meet and collaborate with institutions and associations, using their expert design capacities to develop local and regional projects. These include creating services in the informal or marginal settlements of the new metropolises, redefining relations between city and countryside, creating social services rooted in neighborhoods and communities, setting up local and regional alternative mobility systems. For the design discipline in general, this interest in places represents an important change. In the past, in the same way that industrial products were thought of as independent of the places where they were designed, produced, used, and consumed, expert design has essentially been considered as a deterritorialized activity. In other words, for design in the last century, the question of where production took place and where products would be used did not seem to be a significant issue. Now, as anticipated, we can observe that different kinds of design experts are converging toward designing for and with the local. In other words, they are designing as placemakers, an activity in which the two dimensions of problem-solving and sense-making converge, and where new practices and cultures must be co-produced. Design as activism. Cultural activists, grassroots organizations, and design activists are converging toward a range of initiatives whose purpose is not to offer immediate solutions to problems, but to spark interest in these areas and show, often paradoxically or provocatively, that there are different ways of seeing and resolving them. The cultural role of social minorities was recognized and discussed several years ago. Think for instance of groups of urban young people, the street style they have produced and their influence on fashion, or the subcultures generated by communities of enthusiasts, such as bikers or surfers, just to name a couple of the many examples. Alongside the emblematic value and media visibility of these groups, other groups of cultural and design activists are also growing in visibility and impact. The ways and the fields in which they operate may be very different. Raising awareness on the question of public green space by creating a garden on a traffic island or pavement, guerrilla gardening, affirming the rights of cyclists by organizing cycle rallies in city traffic, critical mass, and reclaiming public space by organizing a street dinner are just some examples. Such groups, which may be acknowledged by the institutions or may be in conflict with them, operate by creating design teams in which both volunteers and expert designers take part. Organizing a festival, setting up and managing a self-run social center, or creating a special event in a city are all activities that require out-of-the-ordinary designing and strategic skills to conceive them, to realize the events, and to determine who to join forces with. Therefore, even though these activities are mainly driven by cultural motivations, they require the resolution of some very concrete problems and call for a high level of problem-solving capability. Design as making. An interesting line of evolution for the expert design mode is toward the diffusion of micro-enterprises based on the notions of open design and distributed production. A design mode where design experts are, at the same time, designers, makers, and entrepreneurs. This tendency is highly interesting because, far from being a simple proliferation of small traditional design agencies, it considers micro-enterprises operating in networks to be open, distributed systems. In recent years, the diffusion of the internet and social media